This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
China Media Group's sports channel suspends ties with NBA's Houston Rockets after managers tweet in support of Hong Kong rioters. Tunisians vote for a new parliament as they wait for a presidential runoff election. And to spank or not to spank your children, African countries grapple with the dilemma of corporal punishment. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to you live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Vivier. Here are more stories you can expect. An Ivorian company gives a second lease of life to electronic equipment to spur a circular economy. And in sports news, Lelisa Desisa gifts Ethiopia marathon gold at the IAAF World Athletics Championship. The China Media Group's sports channel has suspended all cooperation with the NBA team Houston Rockets after the team's manager, Daly Murray, posted a tweet in support of Hong Kong rioters. The channel said in a statement that it strongly opposes Murray's inappropriate remarks and that it would suspend all cooperation with Houston Rockets, including the live coverage of its matches. Murray's tweet, now deleted, also caused the China Basketball Association and some Chinese business partners to suspend ties with his team. Well, earlier, our reporter Gay Yunfei told us more about the continuing riots in Hong Kong and their effects on people's daily lives.
Second day of the anti-mask law coming into force since the middle of the night on Friday, but apparently what's happening this afternoon did not work to the government's expectations. I'm now in Causeway Bay, the iconic bustling commercial center in Hong Kong, but you can see right behind me there are dozens of protesters still gathering around, chanting slogans and singing songs. And if you look around, though the neon lights are still shining and some of the big LED screens are still showing advertisements, almost all of the shops here are closed, including the banks, the jewelry shops, medical shops, and the watch stores. So the protest caused a paralysis to the whole society. Starting from 2 p.m., two large march began in Hong Kong Island and Kowloon districts. Tens of thousands of people began marching from here, heading for the Charter Garden near the financial center. It started peacefully, but not long after that, a large scale of violence, vandalism, and arson broke out, and hundreds of protesters gathered in front of the government's headquarters, throwing bricks and setting fire, setting up barricades along the road. Meanwhile, a tragedy still occurred in Kowloon district around 5:30 p.m. in Kowloon district in Shengshui-pu. A taxi drove into the protesting crowd, hitting one or two protesters. Then the protesters dragged the driver out of the cabin and started kicking and beating him on the ground. The old man in red shirt was almost beaten to death. He was heavily wounded and lost consciousness afterwards. Then the firefighters came to his rescue. And the police said on the first day, yesterday, on Saturday, 13 people were arrested according to the anti-mask law. Today there is still no number released, but I think there will be more people than that.
We move to Tunisia now, where Tunisians have been voting on Sunday for parliamentary elections, the third since the 2011 revolution. This legislative contest for the 217-member chamber comes just 3 weeks after the first round of a presidential election. CGTN's Adnan Shiwashi has more.
13,450 polling stations opened at 8 a.m. There are thousands of registered voters at this center in the suburbs of the capital city Tunis, where the turnout reached over 45% in the last presidential election.
The voting process is smooth and transparent. We have not recorded any irregularities. The civil society is monitoring the whole process.
At least 3 million registered voters boycotted the first round of the presidential election. Tunisian voters have condemned the behavior of a majority of social networks users who criticized political parties behind their screens, without heading to polling stations.
The citizens who reject the existing system of ruling and opposition parties are also responsible for the situation if they do not vote today. We cannot elect the right people if we are passive towards political life. Voting is the solution.
Mariam believes in the power of parliament in changing the reality in Tunisia. She has voted while her 10-year-old son was watching in order to initiate him to the voting process.
I'm voting for change. The new parliament will be responsible for improving the social and economic conditions and boosting investment by appointing a government and creating jobs for over 650,000 unemployed people.
Came to learn and to understand all the steps of the election process. It's a great experience.
Under the terms of the 2014 constitution, Parliament is charged with nominating a prime minister, who is then tasked with forming a government and running day-to-day affairs.
Tunisia has 220 registered political parties, but only 10 of them are fielding candidates in all 33 districts. The election authority has provided all logistical and human means to ensure the integrity of elections. Abdel Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Well, an historic ruling by South Africa's Constitutional Court banning child spanking has sparked intense debate across all spheres of society. South Africa is riddled with high levels of violence, especially among women and children. Previously, parents were allowed to use spanking as a form of discipline, but that has now been banned. Julie Shire reports.
Children in South Africa silently suffer abuse in their homes. Half of the 1,000 children killed between 2017 and 2018 died from neglect and abuse. The Constitutional Court has now put a stop to it by banning spanking, a move applauded by child rights advocates.
The aim is twofold. Firstly, advancing children's rights and just making everyone understand that children are individual rights holders. And the second thing is that South Africa is a very violent society, and we have to understand this judgment in light of, the harsh realities of child abuse and violence against children in South Africa.
Discipline has been erroneously associated with punitive approaches and punitive responses. And of course, that may seem to have an immediate effect. But if we look at the bigger picture, it's a short-term impact, but, of course, doesn't make lifelong changes.
This is the first step in stemming the scourge of child abuse in South Africa, but there's still a long way to go in determining the regulatory framework and how such cases will be handled.
It's not about throwing every parent into jail or incarcerating families. A lot of work still has to be done where government departments have roles and responsibilities, like, for instance, social development. Ensuring that families get the necessary support in not repeating this kind of behavior.
South Africa joins a growing list of over 50 countries to completely outlaw corporal punishment. While some parents are opposed to the ruling, they will have to find different ways to discipline their children. Julie Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, following South Africa's highest court ruling on the spanking ban, a discussion on the issue has generated various perspectives all across the continent. Let's take a look.
As we grew up, our mothers used to use this to discipline us. It's not like we are punishing or we are abusing or we want to kill the children. No, we're just using only maybe 2 times beating the child, smacking the child, in order to put the child in good way of listening to the parents, to avoid him to do some things which are not necessary.
I disagree on corporal punishment on children. You have to sit down, you talk with them, they do listen. If you speak to them politely, they do listen.
There are children who respond to beating, there are those who don't. So there are children who respond to speaking to them. So I have 2 children, they're different. One, definitely the beating does it. The other beats until you're tired, I'm going to do it again the next minute. So we sit down and talk about what you've done and how you feel about it and what you think you should have done.
A child-rearing mechanism should have two things. One, the capacity to raise the child. This capacity comes from first-hand knowledge, and the other from who you are as a person. Therefore, according to me, a child is punished in different scenarios, but the kind of punishment matters. I do not agree with the old-fashioned physical and psychological punishment. Rather, it should be correctional and scientific.
Caning of a child aggressively, it's not good. Yeah, but in African tradition, it is good.
A child should not be beaten out of anger, because if it's out of anger, it can affect the child badly, and that's why we've seen some deaths, some children being beaten at school. Yeah, but a child should be beaten correctively, and when the person punishing is in their right mind, not with anger. If they're still angry, please do not punish the child.
Well, it's time now for us to take a short break and return. More news. Do stay with us.
Here with Mr. J.
At the Great Wall of China. Ni hao.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. You're watching Africa Live. To Côte d'Ivoire now, where a young company has decided to make circular economy its top priority. The company, referred to as Baby Lab, seeks to give a new lease of life to electronic waste.
Baby Lab, as the young company is fondly referred to, is a fabrication laboratory whose goal is to recycle electronic waste in efforts to bring a new form of economy called circular economy. The company was initiated in 2014 in the Ivorian capital Abidjan by a group of young Ivorian computer scientists who sought to give IT equipment a second lease of life.
Here at Baby Lab, we receive a lot of electronic waste, and the goal is to rethink how to reuse them. You see, for example, this monitor was intended for the trash. We learned to reuse it, and with the help of craftsmen, we were able to transform it into furniture. And today, it is used as a bookshelf.
For robot manufacturing, there are parts that we always need. And to buy these parts, we need every time to place orders in Japan. Today, thanks to this 3D printer from our laboratory, we can now model some parts here locally. But for now, we can produce plastic parts because they are plastic filaments that we use to print.
The initiative has become a beacon of hope, offering employment to locals and free training for thousands looking for a better future.
I am a seamstress by profession. I came to learn computer science because I want the world to get to know me and I want to expand my network of customers. But the only way to achieve this is with the internet. I did not go far in my studies. I have always dreamed to learn computer science, but I never found an opportunity. And to be honest, it's here at Baby Lab that for the first time I touched a computer.
It's a forward-looking sector, and especially in the 21st century, where everyone is talking about digitization. So I thought, why not learn programming and specialize in it? Today, that's what I'm learning here at Baby Lab. I wanted to create websites and mobile apps in the future. It's my dream.
Baby Lab remains the first and only fabrication laboratory in Côte d'Ivoire, according to the founders. In addition to training the young adults, the startup offers training programs called Kid Lab for children between the ages of 6 and 16 years of age.
In South Africa, the 17th Penguin Festival has kicked off in Cape Town. It began with penguin lovers young and old witnessing the release of rehabilitated African penguins back into the wild. CGTN's Daniela Pearson has more.
The first to reach the waves. But this rehabilitated penguin is soon joined by others. South Africa's annual Penguin Awareness Day began with a public release of 8 endangered African penguins at Seaforth Beach in Cape Town.
Every year we rehabilitate almost 1,000 and sometimes even more African penguins, and we release them back into the wild. But this is one of the few opportunities that the public have to see us releasing these birds that we have basically got back onto their feet again.
When it comes to protecting penguins and other coastal birds, even small changes can potentially make a huge difference. Festival goers learnt about recycling and saying no to single-use plastics, as well as options for choosing sustainably harvested fish.
There's so many conservation stalls, and I've learned so much about what I can do for the environment and how I can help everyone here.
There are many people like in this area and in our country that really care about the environment, and they all come in to work together.
This species of penguin is the only one native to the African continent, but their numbers are at an all-time low. From 5 million in the 1920s, their numbers have now dwindled to an estimated 20,000 breeding pairs. But these efforts to engage and educate will hopefully help preserve ocean populations for future generations. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
Your sports news is after the break. Here's what you can expect. Elisa D'Souza gifts Ethiopia marathon gold at the IAAF World Athletics Championships.
The newly upgraded CGTN website offers optimized coverage of China and international affairs, as well as distinct voices from around the globe. Be the first to know the biggest political news and discover the background to the major decisions. Decode China with a different perspective and get a better understanding of how China sees the world. Go beyond the news with sharp opinions on the events shaping today's world and reveal a China you have never seen before. Listen to entrepreneurs for in-depth analysis of the economy and touch the pulse of new technology via our hands-on videos. Travel back in time with CGTN to learn about China's past and immerse yourself in Chinese culture. To discover the stories behind Kung Fu. Get the latest news on Chinese lifestyle, including travel, sports, and nature. Regular productions including Ask China put high-ranking officials on the spot, while C-Lab presents new ways of storytelling via cutting-edge technologies, and Global Stringer delivers unique videos from China and beyond. Take a look at the world from a different angle. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. You're watching Africa Live, your sports news. The 2019 IAAF World Athletics Championship comes